In the constantly changing world of fundability, the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs and real estate investors like us, ones who want to grow our businesses and who are tired of paying for really expensive alternative lending, how do we tap into the most inexpensive money available and do it without the hassle of typical borrowing? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Welcome to the Get Fundable podcast with your host, Merrill Chandler.
Welcome back to the Get Fundable podcast. My name is Merrill Chandler. I'll be your host today and always. But today I've got part 2 of our Get Ready for the End of the Year podcast, and I've got some amazing things to help you check off everything you need to do to ensure a successful year conclusion, as well as plan for what next year is going to be and how to make it the best year possible. So when we get back, we'll get right into it. Welcome, everybody. Merrill Chandler here, and this is the Get Fundable podcast. Now, today, just like I said, today we're to have part 2 of our year-end planning, right? What do we need to do to make sure that we've done everything right and in the right timing so that we can close out our year with success? You and I both know, because I've done it, and likely I'm sure you've done it as well. We end up looking at February or March or April, and barely are we getting the year completed. We don't want to wait till then. We're going to be busy building a big, beautiful 2021. So, and next year, we, of course, want to be bigger, bolder, better, and far stronger than we did this year. To do that, we want to make sure that we literally tie this baby up in a bow by December 31st, wherever possible. There might be occasions where it's not possible, but we determine that. We don't leave that to others. If we start in advance, if we start planning, if we do the things that I'm sharing with you, I know I'm going to be ready. I'm already having my executive team meetings in November. I'm having my executive team meetings, preparing for my full team meetings in December, so that January we're kicked off with new goals for the new year and wrapped up accounting, taxes, and making sure that we've spent all the money that we can this year so we have fewer taxes. All right. So let's get to part 2 of our year-end planning. Now, make sure you'll find it in the notes. But make sure that if you haven't seen part 1, we talk about using the slingshot strategy for a better new year. So check that out as well, because there's 3 parts to this, because it is such a powerful way to end the year. It's a powerful set of strategies that are going to create a dynamic positive effect for you. All right. So make sure you check out. If you haven't seen part 1, make sure. If you have seen part 1, you may even want to consider checking into it again. Make sure you've done those things first. Also, in the notes, you're going to find the checklist that I'm going through here. You're going to see this checklist, and we append it. We keep expanding it so that it's more and more comprehensive. So you're going to go to getfundablebusinesschecklist.com. That's getfundablebusinesschecklist.com to download the most recent version of the checklist so that you can dot those I's and cross those T's in your business planning. All right. Now, let's take a look kind of at we're going to look at the 1,000-foot view here, right? For us to close out the year successfully, we need to know where we are standing. Where are we today, right? And this kind of alludes to what we talked about in part 1, but make a clear list, not just, kind of a hokey list. Make a clear list of your achievements, right? You want to know what you accomplished for 2 reasons. The first reason is we need the juice. If you're just checklisting and you're not passionate about what you got done and that you accomplished some of your goals or even all of your goals, If you don't reward yourself, then you need to go into my podcast library and go listen to Take the Win. Because if you're not willing to take the win, then why are you doing this in the first place? We've got to take the win. So make a clear list of your achievements, right? You want to know what you've done so far this year. Now, you're also going to make an evaluation of your team members, your employees, your contractors, right? If you're fixing and flipping, if you have 1099s, contractors, if you have employees, team members, partners, you want to evaluate how well everybody has done against those goals, against those achievements, and against the things that you didn't achieve. You want to know every team member, every employee, every contractor, everybody needs to know how they have done, how they are doing, and most importantly, what does success look like in their position? You got contractors, you got employees, you got team members. If they don't know what success looks like, then they don't know, they're not taking their own wins. And if your team's not taking the wins, it's less likely you get to take the win at a more global company-wide level. So always evaluate the performance, give them an indicator of how they're doing against a measurable standard that will help you. And we'll be talking about that moving into the next year. You also want to take a look at your P&L, right? Look at your annual spending and take note of if you have a budget, which a whole different subject. If you have a budget, are you already over budget? Are you near budget? Are you under budget, right? So you want, and the budget, the over under on budgeting, as I sound like a bookie, the over under on your budget is less important, while important, it's less important than setting a budget in the first place. You want to at least set a standard of what it takes to operate your business. And then you can always take the feedback. If you're 20% over, maybe that's not a realistic goal. So you reset the budget in the upcoming year. If you're under or near or just barely over, then you've got positive feedback. Tighten a few belts to pull some screen, to turn some dials, and you might be able to choose the same budget. That budget is going to help you increase your EBITDA, your profits, etc. All right. So you need to know where you stand now before you do anything else, because we can't know where we're going unless we know where we are. In the boot camp, I always talk about, hey, if let's say Kansas City is funding town, it's a different journey from Miami to funding town, San Diego to funding town, Seattle, Washington, or New York City. Every journey is different. The destination may be the same spot. The journey is going to be different based on where you are. So we need to lock that down. We need to find out what it is, your achievements, performance of employees, so that they know how they won and how and where the failures were, so that we can tighten that up. And notice how over under on your budget. Now, the next thing is once you've got those in play, you want to review your financial goals, right? You want to see you want to see how you're valuing your products, your services, the flips, the ROI on the deals that you're doing, right? You want to, and there's two ways to do that. And this is between you and your accountant, but there is cost plus, meaning if it costs me $20,000 to do this thing, then I'm going to charge 25 or 30 or whatever, 40 per, it's cost plus. Then there is the other side is value and leverage to your customers, right? You may, and I go back to the parable of the mechanic, right? The mechanic is a manufacturing plant is going through the process of the day-to-day manufacturing gobs and gobs and gobs of products, and then all of a sudden it shuts down. Now, every hour that line is shut down is costing millions of dollars, right? Because there's no production when the line's shut down. Calls it the foreman calls in the mechanic, and the mechanic literally 10 minutes later has the thing up and running, and then gives a $3,000 bill, and like, whoa, 15 minutes? Why are you charging me $3,000 for 15 minutes? And the mechanic wisely, and which proves my point, it isn't the value of the time, it's the value to the client, to the customer. Said, hey, it isn't how much it's not how much time I spent solving the problem, it's all the knowledge it took for me to understand the problem and fix it quickly. It's which bolt to turn. Follow me? So you're going to be evaluating your business or your products and services in one of two ways: cost plus, or value to the client or your customer. So make sure that you revisit that. You must revisit that every single year. You want to know how you fit within the microeconomy of your particular products and services, your niche. You want to know what that is. You got to revisit it. Are we still doing cost plus, or are we still doing value add? We need to know, we need to revisit that every time. Now, that's your income statements, right? What are you selling to bring in income? You also want to look at your balance sheet. It needs to, what assets do you have, what liabilities, and what are the equities in the business, right? How much cash, liquid assets, how much illiquid, non-cash, but things that might take some time to liquidate to create cash. You want to know a clear picture of that. So you've got to work with your accountant, not on March 15th to April 15th. You want to work with your accountant on November 1st through the end of the year to tighten up and revisit all of your assets, your liabilities, your entire balance sheet. Right now, my accountant is doing the work that many he hates Marches and Aprils, because everybody waits until then to do the books. Right now, we are planning so that every entry that we do until December 31st is calculated and planned. And guess what? This was from the advice of my accountant, right? My strategic planning is on the advice of my accountant. I'm just passing along because it's a smoking idea and it's working for us. So you do the same. Make sure that your balance sheet is in line, whatever you're going to be depreciating, whatever you're going to be, whatever strategies you're going to implement. Just make sure that they're done beforehand, so that if you need a big cash expenditure so that you can write it off, beforehand, rather than buying huge things at on the December 31st, because you don't have any planning in place. All right. And the other one is your cash flow statement, your P&L. You want to know where your money's coming from. Reevaluate, right? We're in the process of doing this ourselves. This year, we added new income streams. So you need to, some are electronic products, some are events. You need to make sure you have updated your income categories so that there is a fair representation of where your business is coming from. More on this in a minute. But without knowing where your business is coming, you don't know what your yields are, and now you're a little befuddled and confused on where to put your efforts. We need to know what the highest yields are. Got big wins, right? Home runs. Those highest yields we want to grow for the next year. More on that in a minute. Now, let's take a look at tax planning, because there's the actual books, but then there's planning for taxes. So you're going to, we kind of spoke about it already, but you're going to be splitting the income and maximizing your depreciation claims, right? What can I write off immediately? What do I take some time over? All of this goes to your account. I can't weigh in on some of this. I just know that I'm doing it now at the advice of my accounting team and our strategic planning. Now, notice I put those two words together. You don't want just a bookkeeper. You don't want just an accountant. You want a strategic planning partner for your business. You get to evaluate where to put your time, what the priorities are, right? What you value. But the right strategic, I chose an accountant, and does it cost a little bit more? Yeah, it does. But I want somebody else's wisdom and experience so that I don't step on accounting and tax landmines. Just like I coach you how to stop stepping on funding landmines, I don't want to step on tax and accounting landmines. So I go to a pro, just like you come to me for my advice when it comes to your fundability. I go to professionals' advice, and I pay for it because it's the most valuable thing that I can do when it comes to strategic planning. All right. So you want to make sure that you're in what is actually going to be spent versus or written off versus what you're going to be depreciating. Real estate investors, note folks out there, there's a whole complicated chess game you need to do there. Do it before the end of the year, not in March and April and setting extensions. I'm gonna stop here for a second. You always hear me use, especially for those of you who've been binging this, you hear me talk about psychic drag. There is nothing that creates drag like having undone planning, work, strategies where you're doing it for the past. I'm just selling it to you for how much I bought it, guys. If you have the wherewithal, the ability, the team to do this in the front in by the end of the year, imagine how much more clear thinking you have while preparing your taxes, then it's on your team to file them without any additional fees or penalties or otherwise. Imagine not having to look back to the previous year to finish any of. Sometimes we're trying to implement strategies in arrears, right? That's what I call psychic drag, is worrying about the past while you're building your present today and your future tomorrow. So make sure you guys, you eliminate this psychic drag and let's get it done before the end of the year. Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to reevaluate contribution by your partners, your team members. Some of you may be in partnerships. Some of you may have employees who either maybe you have a pool for revenue share. Maybe you have a pool that they're working for X number of weeks, years, vesting in order to own stock or ownership in the company. Whatever it is, revisit it and say, does it still apply today? Right? Because if your goal is to create and engender positive relationships with your team and get everything out of them you can, because you're giving them everything that you can, that is a spectacular partnership, right? So make sure that you reevaluate all the any equity positions, any stock options, any partnerships. Evaluate them every single year and make sure that they reflect the contribution of the last year, right? None of us just work for money. We're looking for a payoff. We're looking for that juice. We're looking to build something bigger than ourselves. And employees can do that very thing if they're given the right framework and the right incentives, et cetera. So I'm just reminding you to look at it at the end of the year. Just look and see how everybody's doing. And some of you, like we do, there may be year-end bonuses, and those year-end bonuses are a function of the success of the company or the success of a department or a team. Evaluate those every single year so you can set up new frameworks and so everybody knows what it means to win. if every single person on your team does not know what it means to win in that position, it's already a fail before the year even starts. So let's give everybody on your team, your partners, everybody, what does it mean to win? What does success look like in this position or part of the partnership? All right. And then some of you, especially those of you who are building QFEs, there might be a chance where you're going to change the business structure. Some of you might be a single member, a sole member LLC, and you want to move it into S Corp. There's only so many days at the beginning of a year to do so that they'll backdate it. So file, if you're doing an S Corp, if you're converting to a C Corp, do those things before the end of the year so that you're starting. Again, all on the advice of, make sure you pay attention to your counsel, your advisor team, but you want to, we're starting a whole new department that's being done in the month of December so that its books are ready to go on January 1st. Then it's clean and clear. There's no borrowing money from this company to that company. You want to create everything so that the clock switches on December 31st if you're a calendar tax system, or if you are, and most of us are, most entrepreneurs don't do a tax year separate than the calendar year. So I'm just, if you do have a fiscal year that does not end at December 31st, then do everything that I'm telling you to do 2 to 3 months prior to the end of your fiscal year. But most of us entrepreneurs, usually go by calendar. Okay. Now, the next thing you want to do is update your social media channels and the data and any address change, any movement, who the managers are. When was the last time you looked at your LinkedIn? When did you, you've got to revisit, right? First of all, backup, make sure that you have backups on all of your, all your platforms, external hard drives, back it up to the cloud. Just make sure that you're not susceptible to a loss. True story. 3 years ago, we were getting ready to move into an online portal with our database. Now, our database has been an island database, meaning it's in a physical location in our office and only the members of the team have access to it. So that way it wasn't hackable. It's not even available. It was an island server. Well, because it was an island server, when the hard drive went down, the backup failed, and we lost about 3 months worth of development work on the client portal. And we lost where we had to go back into earlier versions of our data and then make up from PDFs and from credit profiles. We had to catch up all of our client files. It was a pain in the patukas, and it was it was unsettling for some of our clients who they had to send us something again because we failed on our part. So make sure that your data is backed up. Now, right now, I have 7 redundancies on 2 different platforms, one on a hard drive, one in the cloud, so that all these, so that everything is double backed up on a daily basis. So make sure your data is on a safe platform and is being backed up. All right. You want to keep digital copies of important files, documents, contracts, agreements. Make sure that those are also backed up. You want to make sure that you have a file naming system that helps you move through the year. One that we use ourselves is we do it the European way. It's like today would be, or August. September 1st, 2020 would be 20.09.01. So the year, the month, and the day. Then we put a space, and then we describe the rest of the naming conventions. So that way everything is organized by year and month and day so we know what is the most recent version of any document. The end of the year is a great time where we kind of got sloppy through the year. Just make sure that your file naming and everything is caught up and that it's all backed up. Now, I'm going to revisit what I said about your social media. Update everything. Look at the logo versions. Look at a picture. If you're branded with your name or your an image, make sure at least once a year you change that image. If you've got people working for you, they may be changing it on the quarterly or monthly, but make sure you update it at least annually. Keep it fresh, keep it open, so that people don't associate with just an image. They associate with you as a person, and you have all these different images. Just update everything. Sometimes we just let this stuff slide. That's what the year-end checklist is for, guys. Make sure that you stay on top of that. Now, the next thing is where are your goals? Where are you headed? What's the action plan, the strategies you're going to implement? So under this section, I got 10 a process of 10 things for us to review. So let's take a look at each one of them in turn, right? First thing you want to do is establish what is the single biggest limiting factor inside your business. What's the one thing that just keeps pushing back against your progress, right? For me, it was an archaic way of delivering our services to our clients, right? Well, that's a thing of the past, but it was our greatest single limiting factor. And so every year we continue to update our engagement with our clients. So that's number one. What's the biggest limiting factor? Then, now, if you've got 3 limiting factors, you're going to go through these steps, these questions for each one of them and come up with a plan. Number 2, what are 10 potential ways to push back and make those limiting factors less limiting? What are ways today? Because it may not have been available a year ago or a quarter ago. Today, knowing where you are right now, what's limiting you right now, what can you do today that is going to push back against those limiting factors, right? For me, it was, since I had developed all the algorithms and all of the magic inside of my Fundability processing system, I wrote it all myself, wrote every stitch of it myself. Well, the limiting factor was I'm not a damn programmer. And so everything that I was doing was more difficult. I'm not a good programmer. All right. So we brought in somebody to take that burden off of me. All of a sudden, I have less psychic drag, and we have a pro who's using best practices to take us to a whole new level. Right. And for those of you clients who are listening, yeah, be on the lookout next year, because it's coming, and it's going to blow your mind, your ability and speed to get through all of the milestones and steps to get you to those funding approvals. Okay. But 10 ways that you can overcome those limiting factors. We just want to know different things that we can work around or work under or work over. Okay. Now, step number 3 is take those 10 solutions and notate them if it's low-hanging fruit, meaning, you know what? And for me, it was low-hanging fruit. All I had to do was talk to the people who were my coaches, because there were some programming things that I needed help on, but then they would teach me something. I know I'm dumbass sometimes. I would screen flow it, right? I'd capture the lesson and I'd store it so I could do it myself later on. Well, now they already knew the database. They already knew our system, and so it was super easy, low hanging fruit, to put in to give that to them and say, you do it. Does it cost more? Yes, but will it happen faster and more professionally? Yes. And the faster it is, the better it's going to be for my clients, which means the results come faster And of course, people are like, you got to do this, you got to do it, and business grows. It's easy math to get to that point. But that's what I mean by low hanging fruit. What small things can you do? What easy things can you do to get rid of those limiting factors? All right. Number 4 is also review those 10 to see if there's any home runs. Now, a home run is defined in this case. A home run is where you do it once and it goes forever and ever and ever and ever. Like for me, automating, when we converted from my team doing the milestone steps to doing it as a group, and me leading the group coaching, we have had such amazing results, and the clients are happier and getting it done faster, just because we put it so that we could do it together, and there's a camaraderie, right? There's that was a home run. Changing one thing has created benefit after benefit after benefit. All right. Now, number 5, it's a combination of these two. What is your sweet spot? Now, a sweet spot is simply low-hanging fruit that's also a home run. Where, and we've had several of them. I've just mentioned a couple of them. What was easy to do, but also had just huge results? That's your sweet spot. So you're looking at those 10 ways in step number 2, and you're looking at them for low-hanging fruit, home run, or both. Once you've got those ideas, then you're able to decide. Step number 6, clarify the business you're trying to build, right? What do I want to do this year? Am I flipping 3 a quarter now instead of 1? Am I doing a batch of a dozen notes instead of 2 or 3? Am I buying 1 franchise this year, or am I buying 4 franchises this year? What business is the end game? And to quote Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. Begin this year. Begin November. Begin December with the end of next year in mind. What is next December 31st result do you want? So you're looking to what business you want to build. Me and my team, they call it the E team. You're familiar with that term. The executive team. We're getting together 3 times before we even finish our plans for the new year. I mean, these are full 1 to 2 day planning sessions of where are we going? What have we learned? Going through this exact process, you guys. What have we learned? And what's next? How do we want to shift? How do we want to pivot? How did we do in COVID? Now that COVID's probably going to last a little bit longer, what do we need to do in order to continue either pivot again or continue a 360 where we go all the way around, right? So number 6, clarify the business that you're trying to build. Revisit. And by clarification, revisit your vision for the business. Is it bigger? Did you hit your $1 million in revenue? Now you want to do $5 million in revenue. Whatever it is, what's your vision? And the vision, you guys, your vision is, what does the world look like when you're done with it? What does it look like when you're done? In mind, there are 1 million fundable borrowers more than there were before I came into this space. Call it the million borrower march, right? So that's the vision. What does the world look like when you're done with it? That's your vision. Then also revisit your mission. Does your focus expand? Does it narrow? Did you find that one market was yielding? I mean, it's like a gold mine in one market. Like, let's say you're all of a sudden you're from California, just throwing out the states out there. You're from California, but you found there's a gold mine flipping in or buying and holding in Denver or Kansas or wherever, in Texas. So now, all of a sudden, this coming year, nothing but Texas. See what I'm saying? You want to make, I'm going to have 1 million borrowers just in Texas. So you want to expand or contract your target, right? You want to know that what the result is on December 31st, next year, but you want to have the plan in place by December 31st this year. I mean, literally, step by step by step. Then once you've clarified the scope of your business, right? You've revisited your vision, you've revisited your mission. Some people, we love to set, what are our values? And our values change based on our who we're addressing, the borrower types, the markets we're in, etc. Then once you have the scope of the business, then work backwards from there. Just like I said with a Stephen Covey quote, begin with the end in mind. So you're going to, what does December 31st look like? And bring it back. What am I going to do in fourth quarter? What am I going to do in third quarter? What am I going to do in second quarter? What am I going to do in first quarter? Right? And then in first quarter, what am I going to do in March? What am I going to do in February? And what am I going to do in January? Just start working backwards all the way through. Now, if you're not sure how to best reach these sub goals, right, the quarterlies, et cetera, then do one of the exercises that Brad introduced to me. Again, he's my internal mentor or in-house mentor. What you want to do is create a list of all the things you can do, what's possible can do. So just brainstorm a long list of at least 10. But just as you have 25, but what are the sub goals, the things that can be done to hit that December 31st next year end game? All right, and once you have those, once you have that long list of ideas, at least 10, then pick the ones that make the most sense for first quarter. Next, you don't even have to plan for second quarter unless it's kind of a big, a wide scope, like address the mortgage broker market. That's all, because your quarterly planning is going to take care of that. But right now, we want, what is the big picture? That's what your end goal is about. And then clearly identify, you want to assign a task to the person who owns it. There may be multiple people using it or doing something or contributing to those goals, but what are they doing? Who's responsible for it? Who's accountable that it gets done, even if there's other participants? And what's the standard, right? What does success look like for each one of those tasks? And then probably the most powerful one of them all, guys, is leverage the power of 3. I told you to make 10 home runs, right? Find 10 runs, find 10 sweet spots, find 10 low-hanging fruit, brainstorm at least 10 ideas. But the idea is to each quarter and each month to choose the highest yield top 3 strategies and only work on those 3. You've always got second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Implement the highest yield of those top 3 strategies. So, as you can see, guys, there's getting ready for a new year is a big deal, and I want you to take it serious, because I've learned by hard experience that there were years ago where I didn't have goals. We just literally paid the bills every month, paid for my lifestyle. It was like my own personal piggy bank instead of treating it like a business. So I commend this information to you guys. Be sure to go to the getfundablebusinesschecklist.com, getfundablebusinesschecklist.com, and put your information in so we know where to send it. And we will give you a checklist that is going to go through all of this. All right, guys? Whew. I think I'm ready to start planning the end of my year. So we will, I think I feel complete. This is Merrill Chandler, your host of the Get Fundable podcast, and it has been a pleasure sharing what is working for me with you.
Thank you for listening to the Get Fundable podcast. Please leave comments, because Merrill would love to read about your aha moments from this episode. And be sure to visit getfundable.com to read our blog, get important links, join our community, and much, much more, like ordering Merrill's tell-all book that is changing the world, The New F Word. And you got to tell your friends about this podcast because we want them to get fundable too.